Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good.
Another month, another book.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you guys read it. I, as usual, listened to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have time for. Don't like to read, but I do like to listen. So this month's book is going to be The Dip by Seth Godin. And wonderful book. I would strongly encourage any business owner or any person really to buy the book because I can't think it has some universal truth, don't you?
Yeah, it's really great for pretty much every aspect of life. I guess, Keith, if you want to start with what is the dip and just kind of a general summary of what the book goes over.
Sure. To me, the dip was, you go through things in life and, there are certain things that you want to do and, you want to do this really awesome thing, but, to get there, there's, it's not easy. There's times where you struggle. It's hard to get through some things. And that's the dip where things get really hard and you realize, man, this is maybe not as it's cracked up to be. But once you get there to the end, it was definitely worth going through the struggles and the hardships you went through to, see whatever you were doing through completion in life, whether it's your job, whether it's a relationship, it could be anything. Just going through the hardships to see something that's at the end that's really great, that's really worth it to get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they talk about, too, and one of the early parts of it is that really most of the world is kind of a winner-takes-all situation.
Yeah.
They use an example of ice cream where, they list the top flavors, and of course number one is vanilla, and then chocolate, and then they go down from there. And then you're like, man, it must be pretty great to be number 4. But then you look at vanilla has some crazy like 60-70% market share of all of the ice cream sold is vanilla. And he used talked about different industries where being number 1 gets you almost everything, and being number 4 or number 5 to number 6 is, such a small piece of the pie, it's almost insignificant. So when you go through the dip, your goal is to become essentially the best in the world. And Greg, if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily being the best in the world. It's sort of like being the best in your world. Mm-hmm. Like we, like in our industry, we try to be all things to all people. We first get in the industry and we find out we can't be all things to all people. And sometimes spread ourselves out like really, really thin because we're trying to accomplish a lot of things, but not being able to follow through on them because we don't have the time to go through the dip, go through all the hard times that it takes to get to be successful on the other end. So, like some of our marketing coaches have said, that, narrowing your focus, for instance. So like maybe, you're talking about like accounting groups and that sort of deal, and that's the market that you want to go to. The more you narrow your market, you learn everything that you can about them. You go through the dip with that specific market, and then you move through to become successful with that specific group. That might be your world. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to be good at all things, but you need to be good at what you do. Mm-hmm. Whether it's in your world and it's what you want, not necessarily the world.
Yeah, and like in your example, if it's an accountant, when they're looking for an IT provider, they're going to be looking for the best IT provider for them. They don't want someone who kind of dabbles in what they do. They want the best because they deserve the best.
Well, do you understand our software? Do you understand that April 15th or in this year, it's July 15th is like a drop dead date that has to be dealt with. Can you relate to them? Yeah. Have you learned enough about their business and about how they feel about their business that you're able to successfully not only deal with their actual physical problems, like mechanical rather, but being able to understand their stresses. And you just don't get that in the first year that you start going after, say, for instance, an accountant market, where you just learn that over time. And that's sort of the dip. You got to pay the price.
Yeah, and Keith, one of the things they talk about too, in becoming the best in the world is, knowing when to quit. If you kind of want to go into that a little bit, where.
Yeah. So everything you do in life, there's times where it's hard and there's times where you just find yourself doing the same thing over and over again. And one of the things they talk about in the dip is about getting caught in a cul-de-sac, which at a cul-de-sac you're just driving around in the same little neighborhood over and over again.
Dead end.
And it's a dead end. You're doing that, and Greg probably attests that some of the people in the older generations, they worked at that same job for 15, 25, 35 years. That's all they did, and they never really progressed. And one of the things that is really cool about the dip is he talks about when is the right time to quit. When is it time to move on and try to get unstuck and get out of that cul-de-sac and get back up that hill so you can achieve more in your life. You don't want to just stay in the same old routine over and over if it's really not benefiting you and if it's not getting you anywhere. So that was one of the key points I thought in the book was really good about.
Yeah. And Greg, let me ask you this, and I guess we can each go around in turn. What was the big thing that you got from the book?
Wow, I guess like the first half of the book, I was sort of mad because the my generation was taught you never quit and quitters never win, and that was regardless of whether it was sports or anything else, So the first half of the book is like, this is crap, man. But then I got to thinking a little bit more deeply about it. And went, man, how many shiny objects have we gone after various endeavors and really never followed through on it, end up wasting a lot of time and money, trying to get stuff going that, was a nice idea, but in practicality just kind of didn't work, was sort of dead end, or, just really wasn't something that I wanted to do. So, I guess that was kind of my takeaway is like, and I think I've gotten better at it, is knowing when to quit when something simply does not work for you, doesn't work for your business, doesn't work for, your life in general.
Exactly.
Keith?
Yeah, the dip, I think one of the cool examples he gave us in there was about the doctor. Doctor's a great job to have, but what it takes to become a doctor, what is it, organic chemistry, all those classes, those residencies that doctors have to take, it's not easy to become a doctor. It takes a long time. So when you reach the end and you're finally a doctor, all the struggle you went through, that dip you went through, you made it out the other end, you were a doctor.
Yeah, because that organic chemistry was sort of like the big gateway. It's like, we don't want everybody to go to med school and become like, unless you're really dedicated. So, I mean, if you failed it, then you were going to be a psychologist kind of deal.
And that's why not everybody is doctors. Not everybody could make it through that dip. And maybe some people, they found out, they quit, and they quit at the right time. So maybe they moved on to something else, like Greg said. Maybe they became a psychologist or a psychiatrist, whatever they did. But yeah, I think it was a great book. What about you, Tanner?
Yeah. I guess my big takeaways was, talking about the best in the world. It used some examples of, like with GE, when they were making hundreds of millions of dollars on these product lines, but they cut them. And when asked, you're making all this money, why are you doing it? Well, it's because, we're fourth in the market, fifth in the market, and we're not the best. And to make more money as a whole, we need our focus to be on what we can be the best at. And ultimately, that is what is going to take us farther. Mm-hmm. And also if you have the mindset that you can be third at something or fifth at something, you're not going to give it your all. You're not going to persevere through it, and you're not going to get that reward. So knowing that if I'm going to go into it, I'm going to go into it for the long haul to be the absolute best in the world that I can be. And I'm going to plan out to know when it's not working, when to quit. But until then, I'm going to work my absolute hardest to do the best job so I can get that reward.
It's kind of like our business, where, you can be half at a whole lot of things, or you can be really, really good at a few things. And I think that's kind of like where we're at, in our business. I mean, last 7 months, we've really narrowed down our focus, the number of products that we service, the number of, the type of customers that we're wanting and that sort of deal. That's kind of where we've been at the whole last 7 months is trying to narrow down to be the best in our world, and dealing with the people that we that we care about.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's definitely a timely book for us, and
It was, yeah.
it's worth the read. Check it out if you can, and then we will continue on next month as well, so we get more and more.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the Amazon for the book. So, yeah, buy the book. It's cheap.
Yeah.
It's worth the read, worth your time.
All right, well, thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.